I pretended to be a girl online and started catfishing my 3 roommates. Never expected they'd all fall so hard for my fake persona. When I realized things were getting out of hand, I quickly broke up with all of them. But that night, they cornered me with their phones and photos of me in drag. Baby, weren't we good enough? Why did you break up with us? I created different accounts to mess with my roommates. Never thought they'd be so easy to enchant. In less than 2 weeks, they were all wrapped around my finger. Then they started asking to meet in person. Seeing things heading in an unexpected direction, I immediately broke up with all of them. The moment I sent the messages, I heard Mason throw his phone against the floor. I flinched in fear. Seriously? That upset? We only dated for 2 weeks. Dude, you're taking this way too seriously. I cautiously peeked through my bed curtain. What's wrong? I asked, pretending to be innocent. Mason roared. My girlfriend just broke up with me. He suddenly looked up, staring directly at me. His gaze gave me goosebumps. Why are you looking at me like that, bro? Don't be sad. It's okay. I nervously consoled Mason. I even got out of bed to pat his shoulder. Before I could finish comforting him, the door was violently kicked open. Tyler, my second roommate, entered with a face pale with anger. As student council president, this was the first time I'd seen him lose his composure. He was clutching his phone tightly. Oh no, I'm screwed. I should have staggered the breakup times. What's wrong? I asked, knowing perfectly well Tyler looked at me too. His eyes slightly red. He turned away. My girlfriend broke up with me. Come on. It was only 2 weeks of dating. Why are you all taking it so hard? Looks like I really messed up. There was no way I could let them know I was their online girlfriend. They'd be furious with me. The thought alone gave me chills. I had no idea they were all such romantics. It's okay. It's fine. I mumbled awkwardly. Meanwhile, my feet were slowly backing away. I was terrified. Tyler turned to look at me. Why would she break up with me? Am I not good enough? I didn't dare answer. Honestly, I shook my head vigorously. No, you're great. Really great. She doesn't deserve you. Tyler rejected my answer. She absolutely deserves me. Fine. Love struck fool hopeless. Just as I reached the doorway, ready to make an excuse to run, I backed into someone's bust. I turned to see Jake, my last pranked roommate, with tears in his eyes. Again, I asked the obvious. What's wrong, man? Jake just hugged me and burst into tears. I don't want to break up. My girlfriend wants to break up with me. No breakup, please. No breakup. My hands frozen midair. Darn it. This prank went too far. There was no way to fix this now. I needed to get out of here fast. But Jake was holding me like a big puppy dog. I couldn't escape Jake. It's okay. Everything's fine. But Jake wouldn't listen. Then why break up if everything's fine? Why? I laughed awkwardly. Maybe you guys had some issues. Jake's gaze was too intense. I turned away. The guilt was overwhelming. I had no idea they would take it so seriously. If I'd known, I wouldn't have done it in a million years. I couldn't stay here any longer. The room was heavy with resentment. I have something to do. I need to go. But just my luck. The moment I stepped out, I ran into my admirer, a senior who'd been pursuing me lately, holding a bouquet of flowers. He blocked my escape route. Come on, man. This is not the time for romance. I'm running for my life here. But this guy completely missed my desperate expression. I impatiently told him to move, and he suddenly slapped my lower back. Don't be ungrateful. I'm confessing to you. You should feel lucky. He grabbed my hand, trying to drag me away. Before I could call for help, something was shoved into my mouth, which I was forced to swallow. Immediately after, I was yanked away from the senior by a powerful force. Jake kicked the senior to the ground. Mason pulled me protectively into his arms. Tyler checked me for injuries inside with relief when he found none. Then all 3 of them took turns confronting the guy on the ground. What kind of trash talks to our baby like that? I nodded vigorously. That's right. That's right. I was just starting to enjoy this drama when they turned toward me. Now baby, we need to settle our account. What account? What are they talking about? I was smoothly picked up and thrown back into our dorm room. Oh, they were even kind enough to close the door. Tyler smiled gently. Baby, can you explain why you have my girlfriend's selfies on your phone? Mason nodded. Yeah, baby. Can you explain why my girlfriend's clothes are in your closet? Jake was even more direct. He held up a gift he bought me. I was going to buy this for you, baby. You said you liked this. Please don't break up with me, bro. Please put that thing away. Why are you bringing that out in such a serious situation? But wait, why do I feel so hot suddenly? Hold on. That senior. What did he force me to swallow? The heat hit me like a freight train. 1 second I was standing there trying to come up with an excuse for why my phone was full of selfies that looked suspiciously like the girl they'd all been dating, and the next my skin was on fire. My knees buckled. Whoa, hey. Mason caught me before I face planted into the floor. His hands on my arms felt like ice, and I couldn't stop myself from leaning into him. What's wrong with you? I don't. The words came out slurred. My tongue felt thick. The room was spinning, and my clothes suddenly felt like sandpaper against my skin. Too rough. Too much. I clawed at my collar, trying to get some air. Tyler's earlier anger evaporated, replaced by sharp concern. He crouched in front of me, pressing the back of his hand to my forehead. His skin was cool, and I almost moaned at the relief. He's burning up. What the hell did that bastard give him? Jake was already on his feet, his tear-streaked face hardening into something I'd never seen before. That senior. I'll kill him. Wait. Tyler grabbed Jake's arm. We need to know what it was first. If it's something serious, beating him unconscious won't help. Through the haze, I saw Mason exchange a look with Tyler. Some silent conversation passed between them. The kind of communication that came from living together long enough to read each other's minds. Mason scooped me up like I weighed nothing and deposited me on his bed. The sheets smelled like him, sandalwood and something else, something warm. I buried my face in his pillow before I could stop myself. Okay, that's not normal. I heard Jake say, his voice tight. He's never like this. The guy made him swallow something. Tyler's voice was closer now, right above me. I felt his fingers on my wrist, checking my pulse. His heart is racing. Pupils dilated. Body temperature elevated. Loss of motor control. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice had gone dangerously quiet. I know what this is. What? Mason and Jake asked at the same time. I've heard about this stuff. It circulates at certain parties. They call it obedience or puppy on the street. It's designed to lower inhibitions, make the victim compliant and, he couldn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The meaning hung in the air like poison. Mason's fist slammed into the wall. The whole room shook. I'm going to find that piece of shit. Wait. Tyler's voice cut through Mason's rage. Jake, stay with him. Mason, you're with me. We're bringing that bastard back here, and we're getting answers. If there's an antidote, we need it. If there isn't, he didn't finish that sentence either. I wanted to tell them I was fine, that they didn't need to go all vigilante on my behalf. But when I opened my mouth, what came out was a pathetic whimper. My body was screaming for something I couldn't name. And the absence of Mason's arms around me was physically painful. Baby, I'm here. Jake's weight settled on the bed beside me. His hand found my hair, stroking it back from my forehead. The touch sent electric shocks down my spine. I arched into it before my brain could catch up. Oh God, you're really burning up. Jake, my voice cracked. The name came out like a plea, and I didn't even know what I was pleading for. I know. They'll be back soon. His fingers traced down my cheek, my jaw, my neck. Everywhere he touched, the fire eased for just a moment before roaring back twice as strong. Just hold on, okay? Can you do that for me? I tried to nod, but it came out as a full-body shiver. The sheets were too hot. My clothes were too much. I needed them off. Now. My hands fumbled with the buttons of my shirt, but my fingers were clumsy and uncooperative. Whoa, hey, what are you doing? Jake caught my wrists, holding them still. Hot. I managed. Too hot. A war played out across Jake's face. I watched it through half-lidded eyes. The conflict between doing what was proper and giving me what I needed. The drug was stripping away all my filters, all my carefully constructed walls. I could see him clearly now, really see him. The way his dark hair fell across his forehead. The slight tremble in his hands. The way his eyes, still rimmed red from crying earlier, now held something else entirely. I'm sorry, I whispered. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. I'm sorry I pretended to be a girl. I'm sorry I catfished you. I didn't mean to. I didn't think you'd actually. Shoo. Jake released my wrists and cupped my face instead. His palms were callous from the gym, rough against my overheated skin. We'll talk about that later. Right now you need to focus on staying calm. But calm was the last thing my body wanted to be. The drug was rewriting my nervous system with every passing second, turning every touch into pleasure and every absence into agony. I whimpered again, and Jake's composure cracked. God, you're killing me, he muttered, more to himself than to me. You have no idea, do you? All those nights you were texting me, sending me those cute messages, and it was you the whole time. You. My roommate. My friend. The guy I've been sharing a room with for 2 years. I'm sorry, I said again because it was the only thing my drug-addled brain could hold on to. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I couldn't help the way my mouth opened slightly, the way my tongue darted out to taste his skin. He inhaled sharply. You're not in your right mind right now. When you're better, we're going to have a very long conversation about this. All 4 of us. The door banged open. Mason stormed in first, dragging the senior by his collar. The guy's face was a mess of bruises and blood, his previously pristine clothes now torn and dirty. Tyler followed behind, his expression cold enough to freeze hell. Found him trying to sneak off campus, Mason growled, throwing the senior to the floor. The man crumpled, groaning. Took some convincing to get him to talk. Convincing was clearly a euphemism. The senior's fingers looked broken. Tyler crouched beside the man, his voice deceptively calm. Tell them what you told me. The senior spat blood onto the floor. It's just puppy. It'll wear off in a few hours. There's no antidote. You just have to write it out. Write it out how? Jake demanded. The senior laughed, a wet, ugly sound. How do you think? The drug lowers inhibitions and heightens physical sensitivity. It's designed to make the victim desperate for touch. Any touch. The more the better. If he doesn't get enough physical contact, the fever will keep climbing. In extreme cases, he shrugged. Organ failure. But that's rare. Usually someone's around to help out. Mason's kick to the man's ribs was swift and brutal. You sick fuck. What was your plan? Tyler asked, his voice still terrifyingly calm. Give him the drug and then what? He's been rejecting me for months, the senior wheezed. I thought if I made him need me, he'd finally. I was going to take him somewhere private. Take care of him. He would have been grateful afterward. I would have vomited if my body wasn't already consumed by the fire inside me. As it was, I could only curl into a tighter ball on Mason's bed, shaking. Get him out of here, Jake said, his voice shaking with rage. Get him out before I do something that'll get me expelled. Tyler nodded. I already called campus security. They're on their way. I have the drug sample and his confession recorded. He held up his phone. He's done. Mason hauled the senior to his feet and dragged him out into the hallway. I could hear him exchanging words with someone, security, probably, before the door closed again, leaving the 4 of us alone. The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds before another wave of heat crashed over me. I cried out, my back arching off the mattress. 3 sets of hands were on me instantly, Mason at my shoulders, Tyler at my wrist checking my pulse again, Jake still cradling my face. His temperature is still climbing, Tyler reported grimly. We don't have hours. If the fever gets too high, then we help him, Mason said, and his voice left no room for argument. We do what needs to be done. We can't just, Jake started, but Mason cut him off. Look at him. You want to take him to the hospital? Have them pump him full of drugs that might not even work? Or worse, have this on his medical record? You know what they do to people who've been dosed with this stuff. The psychological evaluation. The mandatory counseling. The stigma. Mason's jaw was tight. We can handle this ourselves. He's not in his right mind. Tyler's voice was strained. Anything that happens right now he might not. He might regret it later. He might hate us. The words cut through the fog in my brain. Regret? Hate them? I tried to focus on their faces swimming above me. Mason, with his explosive temper and fiercely protective nature. Tyler, with his careful control and hidden depths. Jake, with his gentle heart and endless loyalty. My roommates. My friends. The men I'd been catfishing for 2 weeks. And now they knew. They knew everything, and instead of throwing me out or beating me up, they were trying to save me. Don't hate you. I managed, my voice barely a whisper. Could never. 3 pairs of eyes snapped to my face. Baby. Jake leaned closer. What did you say? Could never hate you. The words came easier now, pushed out by the drug's truth serum effect. You're so good. Too good for me. That's why I did the catfish thing. I just wanted to see what it felt like. To be loved by someone like you. Even if it wasn't real. The confession hung in the air like a soap bubble, fragile and terrifying. Mason was the first to break the silence. You idiot, he said, but there was no heat in it. You absolute idiot. You could have just talked to us, Tyler added, his carefully maintained composure cracking at the edges. You didn't have to create a fake persona. Would you have looked at me twice otherwise? The drug was making me honest, too honest. I'm just me. Boring. Average. Not the kind of person people fall in love with. Jake made a wounded sound. Is that really what you think? Before I could answer, another wave hit. This one was stronger, hotter, more devastating than the last. I screamed, actually screamed, and my body convulsed on the bed. Panic flashed across all 3 of their faces. We're out of time, Tyler said, and for the first time tonight his voice shook. We need to make a decision. Now. Mason looked at Jake. Jake looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at me. And then one by one they nodded. Baby, listen to me. Jake's voice was soft but steady. He climbed onto the bed beside me, his body a solid grounding presence. We're going to help you. But we need you to promise us something. What? I gasped. Promise that when this is over, you'll give us a real chance. No more fake personas. No more hiding. Just you. The real you. His eyes, still red-rimmed, held mine with an intensity that left no room for evasion. Can you do that? The word stuck in my throat. This was everything I'd wanted and everything I'd been terrified of. All wrapped up in one impossible question. He's burning up, Jake, Mason said urgently. We don't have time for negotiations. He needs to agree, Jake insisted. Otherwise we're no better than that bastard we just kicked out. Tyler's hand found mine, squeezing gently. We're not asking you to decide your entire future right now. Just promise to stop running. Stop hiding. Let us in. Really in. The fire was consuming me. My thoughts were fragmenting, shattering into pieces too small to hold. But somewhere in the chaos, one thing became crystal clear. I didn't want to run anymore. I didn't want to hide. I wanted them. All 3 of them. In whatever way they'd have me. Yes, I breathed. Yes. I promise. What happened next was a blur of sensation and relief. They worked together with a coordination that would have been impressive if I'd been capable of appreciating it. Clothes were carefully removed. Mine first, then theirs. Hands traced paths across my overheated skin, soothing the fire wherever they touched. Lips followed, pressing kisses to my forehead, my cheeks, my shoulders. Every point of contact was a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of something dark and dangerous. They were gentle. God, they were so gentle. Even Mason, with his explosive temper and rough edges, handled me like I was made of glass. They took turns holding me, touching me, grounding me. When one needed a break, another would take his place. There was no jealousy, no competition, just a shared determination to get me through this. I lost track of time. Hours might have passed, or minutes. All I knew was the ebb and flow of the fever, the way it would spike and recede, each wave a little weaker than the last. They stayed with me through all of it, murmuring words I couldn't quite make out, their voices a constant, comforting presence. When I finally surfaced from the drug's grip, the first thing I noticed was the quiet. The fire had receded to a dull warmth, manageable and almost pleasant. The second thing I noticed was that I was sandwiched between 3 very warm, very naked bodies. Mason was behind me, his chest pressed against my back, one arm draped protectively over my waist. Jake was in front of me, my head tucked under his chin, his breathing slow and even. Tyler was somewhere to the side, his leg tangled with mine, his hand resting on my hip. I should have panicked. I should have scrambled out of the bed and run for the hills. But my body was too exhausted to do anything but lie there, and my mind was still processing everything that had happened. The catfishing, the breakup, the confrontation, the senior, the drug, the confessions. Oh God, I told them everything. Every pathetic, embarrassing truth I'd been hiding for months. I told them I thought I wasn't good enough. I told them I just wanted to feel loved. I'd promised to stop running. What had I done? Stop thinking so loud. Mason's voice was a rumble against my spine. You're going to give yourself a headache. I froze. You're awake. We've all been awake for about 20 minutes, Tyler said from my other side, his thumb tracing lazy circles on my hip bone. We were just waiting for you to fully come back to yourself. How do you feel? Jake asked, pulling back far enough to look at my face. His eyes were clear now, the earlier redness faded, but the intensity was still there. Temperature seems normal. Color's good. I'm fine, I managed. I think. What time is it? Almost dawn. Tyler gestured toward the window, where pale light was just beginning to filter through the curtains. You were out of it for about 6 hours. 6 hours. 6 hours of, whatever that was. My face flooded with heat that had nothing to do with the drug. Listen, about what happened. We need to talk. Mason's arm tightened around my waist, preventing my instinctive attempt to escape. All of us. Now. There was no getting out of this. I was literally surrounded, and even if I managed to break free, where would I go? This was my dorm room. These were my roommates. And after everything that had happened tonight, I owed them at least a conversation. Okay, I said quietly. Let's talk. Tyler sat up first, reaching for a pair of sweatpants draped over the bedpost. He tossed similar garments to Mason and Jake, and after a moment of awkward shuffling, we were all marginally decent, and sitting in a loose circle on the bed that had somehow accommodated all 4 of us. I'll start, Tyler said, because of course he would. The student council president couldn't resist taking charge of any situation. First, your health. The drug seems to have run its course, but we should still get you checked out by a doctor. Discreetly. I know someone at the campus clinic who can be trusted. I don't think that's necessary. It's non-negotiable. Tyler's tone booked no argument. That drug was dangerous. We need to make sure there are no lasting effects. I deflated. Fine. Second, the senior. Tyler's expression darkened. He's been arrested. I provided campus security with the recording, the drug sample, and witness statements from all three of us. Given the severity of the crime, he's looking at expulsion and criminal charges. You'll need to give your own statement when you're ready. The thought of facing that man again made my stomach turn, but I nodded. Okay. Third, Tyler hesitated. Us. The word hung in the air. Mason shifted beside me, and Jake's hand found mine, squeezing gently. You told us a lot of things last night, Jake said carefully. Things you might not have said if you weren't under the influence. We need to know how much of that was real. I wanted to lie. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to deflect, to make a joke, to brush it all off as drug-induced nonsense. But I'd made a promise. And more than that, I was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of hiding. Tired of being so goddamn scared all the time. All of it, I said, and my voice only wavered a little. Everything I said was true. Jake's breath caught. Mason went very still behind me. Even Tyler's carefully maintained composure flickered. I've had feelings for all of you for a while now. I continued, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I didn't know what to do with it. I thought if I created fake accounts, I could just experience what it might be like. Just a little. Just for a while. I never thought you'd actually fall for them. For me, I didn't think I was worth falling for. You're an idiot, Mason said again, but this time his voice was thick. A complete and utter idiot. I know. We've been dropping hints for months, Jake said, and there was something almost like frustration in his voice. Months, Alex. I literally asked you to be my Valentine's Day date as a joke. Mason always saves you the last slice of pizza. Tyler does your laundry when you're stressed about exams. I thought you were just being nice, I whispered. I thought it was just roommate stuff. Roommate stuff. Mason let out a disbelieving laugh. I broke my hand punching a guy who catcalled you last semester. You think I do that for just any roommate? You said you slipped on ice. In September? I opened my mouth then closed it. Okay, in retrospect, that had been a really obvious lie. The point is, Tyler interjected, ever the mediator. We've all been interested in you for quite some time. We just couldn't figure out how to approach it. The three of us have an understanding. We've talked extensively, but you were always the wild card. We didn't know if you felt the same way, or if you'd be open to something unconventional. Unconventional, I repeated. You mean the four of us? Yes. Together? Yes. Like all of us, dating each other. Yes, Alex. Tyler's patience, legendary though it was clearly being tested. That is what we're proposing. I looked at each of them in turn. Tyler, with his steady gaze and hidden softness. Mason, bristling with protective energy and barely concealed hope. Jake, open and vulnerable, and wearing his heart on his sleeve. These were the men I'd been catfishing. These were the men I'd been terrified of hurting. And somehow, impossibly, they wanted me anyway. You're not mad about the catfishing? I asked, because my brain apparently couldn't accept good things without finding the catch. Oh, we're furious, Mason said, and the glint in his eye made me shiver. You put us through emotional hell, Alex. We thought we'd all been dumped by the same girl on the same night. Do you have any idea what that did to our egos? I said I was sorry. You're going to make it up to us, Tyler said smoothly. Starting now. How? The three of them exchanged a look. The kind of look that made me very, very nervous. First, Jake said, ticking off on his fingers. You're going to delete all those fake accounts. In front of us. No more catfishing anyone ever. Done. Easy. Second, Mason continued. You're going to go on a date with each of us. Individually. So we can get to know the real you. No fake personas. No hiding. That's fair. Third, Tyler said, and his smile turned just slightly predatory. You're going to stop pretending you're not worthy of being loved. Every time you put yourself down, one of us is going to correct you. And if you argue, there will be consequences. I swallowed hard. Consequences. Nothing you won't enjoy, Mason murmured, and the heat in his voice made my face flame. And fourth, Jake added, his expression softening. You're going to let us take care of you. Not just when you've been drugged by a psychopath. All the time. When you're stressed. When you're sad. When you're happy. We want to be there for all of it. My throat tightened. That's a lot of conditions. Take it or leave it, Tyler said, but his eyes were kind. As if I could leave it. As if I could walk away from the three most incredible people I'd ever met, who had somehow decided that messy, chaotic, catfishing me, was worth all this effort. I'll take it, I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. All of it. I'll take it. Jake pulled me into a hug before I could say anything else. Mason's arms wrapped around both of us from behind. Tyler completed the pile, his long arms somehow reaching around all three of us. Good, Jake whispered into my hair. Because we weren't going to let you leave anyway. I laughed, a wet, slightly hysterical sound. This is insane. This whole situation is insane. We're going to be the talk of the entire campus. Let them talk, Mason said. I don't care. Neither do I, Tyler agreed. I've spent my whole college career worrying about my reputation. For once, I want something that's just for me. For us, Jake corrected. For us, Tyler agreed. We stayed like that for a long moment, tangled together on a bed that was definitely not designed for four people. Outside, the sun was fully rising now, painting the room in shades of gold and pink. A new day. A fresh start. Eventually, practical concerns reasserted themselves. We were all exhausted, hungry, and in desperate need of showers. But even as we untangled ourselves and went about the mundane business of morning routines, something had fundamentally shifted between us. Mason made coffee and handed me a cup fixed exactly the way I liked it, something I'd never told him, but he'd apparently noticed anyway. Tyler commandeered the bathroom first, but left the door slightly ajar in case anyone needed anything. Jake hovered near me like a mother hen, finding excuses to touch my shoulder or my arm every few minutes. It was overwhelming. It was terrifying. It was perfect. The days that followed were an adjustment. True to my word, I deleted all the fake accounts in front of them. We made a ceremony of it, gathering around my laptop like we were performing an exorcism. Mason held my hand while I clicked through the deletion confirmations. Jake made explosion noises every time an account disappeared. Tyler documented the whole thing with dramatic narration, as if he were commentating a sporting event. And the catfish is down. The catfish is down. The crowd goes wild. You're all ridiculous, I said, but I was laughing. My first individual date was with Jake, because he asked with such earnest puppy dog eyes that none of the others could bear to compete. He took me to the campus arboretum, a place I'd walked past 100 times, but never actually visited. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom, painting everything in shades of pink and white. I used to come here a lot freshman year, Jake said as we walked along the winding paths. When I was homesick, it reminded me of my mom's garden. You never told me that. He shrugged, a little embarrassed. It felt too personal. We were roommates, but we weren't, close. Not like that. I thought about all the conversations we'd had over the past 2 years. Video games, classes, complaints about the dining hall food, surface level stuff. I'd been living with these people for 2 years, and I barely knew anything real about them. Tell me now, I said. What else don't I know about you? So he did. He told me about growing up in a small town, about his dad's expectations and his mom's quiet support. He told me about the pressure of being the first in his family to go to college, about the fear of failure that kept him up at night. He told me about the relationship he'd had in high school that ended badly, and how he'd been afraid to open up to anyone since. In return, I told him about my own fears, my imposter syndrome, my conviction that someday everyone would realize I didn't belong here, that I wasn't smart enough or talented enough or good enough. By the time we got back to the dorm, my throat was raw from talking and my eyes were red from the tears I tried to hide. Jake kissed me on the forehead at the door, soft, gentle, undemanding, and I felt something crack open in my chest. Mason's date was completely different. He took me to an axe-throwing place off campus, which was apparently a thing that existed. He'd booked a private lane and spent the first 20 minutes teaching me proper form, his hands on my hips and shoulders adjusting my stance with a focus that made my heart race for reasons entirely unrelated to physical exertion. You're overthinking it, he said, his breath warm against my ear. Just let your body do what it knows how to do. My body doesn't know how to throw an axe, Mason. Then teach it. Somehow, by the end of the session, I'd actually managed to hit the target a few times. Mason cheered louder than anyone else in the entire venue, and when I turned to him, flushed with victory, he kissed me right there in front of everyone. It wasn't soft like Jake's kiss. It was fierce and possessive and left no room for doubt about how he felt. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I've wanted to do that for 6 months, he admitted. 6 months? Since the night you stayed up with me when my grandmother died. You didn't say anything. You just sat with me and handed me tissues and made me tea. I thought maybe you felt something too. I remembered that night. Mason had been so quiet, so unlike his usual explosive self. I hadn't known what to say, so I'd just been there. Apparently that had been enough. I did feel something, I confessed. I just didn't know how to name it. Tyler's date was the last and, predictably, the most meticulously planned. He'd made reservations at a quiet Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place with candles on the tables, and a wine list longer than my thesis bibliography. He'd even arranged for a car to pick us up, because apparently the student council president had connections. You clean up nice, he said when I emerged from the bedroom in the suit he'd had delivered earlier that day. Really nice. You bought me a suit. I had it tailored to your measurements. I noticed you didn't have anything formal that fit properly and I thought, he trailed off, suddenly looking almost shy. Was that too much? Yes, it was absolutely too much. It was also the most thoughtful thing anyone had ever done for me. It's perfect, I said. You're perfect. It's honestly kind of annoying. His smile could have powered the entire city block. Dinner was incredible. The conversation was even better. Tyler, it turned out, was hilarious when he let his guard down. He told me stories about student council drama that had me crying with laughter, and shared his secret ambition to become a documentary filmmaker instead of going into politics like his family expected. Why haven't you told anyone that? I asked. Because it's not practical. It's not the responsible choice. It's not what a good son would do. Since when do you care about being practical? You're dating 3 people and a former catfish. He laughed, a real laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Fair point. When he kissed me at the end of the night, it was in the back of the town car, with the city lights sliding past the windows like streaks of gold. His kiss was deliberate, thorough, like he was memorizing every detail, like I was something worth studying. I went home that night and cried in the bathroom for 10 minutes, overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of being loved this much by this many people. The weeks that followed were a crash course in polyamory and vulnerability, and learning to accept affection without flinching. There were bumps along the way, jealousy that needed to be talked through, schedules that needed to be coordinated, boundaries that needed to be established, and then re-established when we realized the first ones weren't working. But there were also moments of pure, crystalline joy. Movie nights where we'd pile onto Mason's bed, the biggest one, which we'd pushed against the wall to create a sort of megabed, and argue about what to watch until someone inevitably fell asleep on someone else's shoulder. Study sessions where Tyler would quiz me on my notes while Jake made snacks, and Mason hovered in the background pretending not to care about our grades even though he absolutely did. Mornings where I'd wake up surrounded by warmth and breathing and the quiet knowledge that I was loved. Really truly loved. Not the fake persona I'd created. Not some idealized version of myself. Just me, in all my messy, chaotic, catfishing glory. It wasn't always easy. There were nights when I'd lie awake, convinced that this was all going to fall apart. That they'd realize they'd made a mistake. That I wasn't worth the effort. On those nights, one of them always seemed to know. Jake would pull me closer and whisper nonsense into my hair until I relaxed. Mason would make me hot chocolate and threaten to fight my insecurities personally. Tyler would talk me through it with logic and patience, and an unwavering conviction that I was wrong about myself. Slowly, gradually, I started to believe them. The seniors' trial happened 3 months later. I gave my statement in a closed courtroom, my voice steady despite the way my hands were shaking. My 3 boyfriends sat in the gallery, their presence a silent wall of support behind me. He was convicted, sentenced, removed from campus and from my life. That night, we had a celebration. Not a wild party or anything, just the 4 of us, in our dorm room, with takeout from my favorite Thai place and a truly inadvisable amount of cheap champagne. To closure, Tyler said, raising his glass. To justice, Mason added. To us, Jake said softly. To the best worst decision I ever made. I said, and they all groaned. You're never going to let the catfishing thing go, are you? Mason asked. Never. It's going to be our how we met story forever. Our grandkids are going to hear about this. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on me with sudden, sharp intensity. Grandkids. Jake repeated. I felt my face heat. I didn't mean, it was just a figure of speech. Too late, Tyler said, his smile slow and dangerous. You said it. Grandkids. That implies a certain level of commitment. We're in college. We can't talk about grandkids. Why not? Mason was grinning now, that sharp wolfish grin that always made my stomach flip. You planning on going somewhere, baby? No, but. Then it's settled, Jake said happily. Grandkids. Eventually. No takebacks. I buried my face in my hands. I hate all of you. You love us, Tyler corrected. Unfortunately, yes. They laughed, and the sound filled the room with warmth. Outside, the campus was quiet, the rest of the world asleep. But in here, in this too small dorm room that had somehow become home, everything was exactly as it should be. 6 months later, we moved into an off-campus apartment together. A real place, with a real kitchen and separate bedrooms and a living room big enough for all of us to fit comfortably. We painted the walls a warm golden color and hung photos of the 4 of us everywhere. At campus events, on dates, just existing together in the mundane beauty of everyday life. I'd started seeing a therapist, at Tyler's gentle suggestion, to work through some of the self-worth issues that had led me to catfish them in the first place. It was hard, painful work, but it was also healing. And after every session, one of them would be waiting to pick me up, ready with a hug or a distraction or just a quiet presence beside me. The fake accounts were long gone. In their place was something real, something solid, something I'd never dared to hope for. One night, we were all on the couch watching some terrible reality show that Jake had gotten us addicted to. I was tucked between Mason and Tyler, with Jake sprawled across all our laps. The show was reaching some dramatic climax. Someone was crying, someone else was yelling, but I wasn't paying attention. I was looking at them. The people who had seen the worst of me and loved me anyway. The people who had been victims of my lies and had chosen to forgive me. The people who had held me through the worst night of my life and every night since. What are you thinking about? Jake asked, tilting his head back to look at me. How lucky I am, I said honestly. How I don't deserve any of you. Mason flicked my forehead. We talked about this. No self-deprecation without consequences. What are the consequences this time? The look that passed between the 3 of them made my heart skip a beat. We'll show you later, Tyler said, his voice dropping into that lower register that always made me shiver. For now, just try to accept the compliment. You're allowed to be happy, Alex. You're allowed to have good things. I was. I really was. It had taken a catfishing scheme, a psychopathic senior, an illegal drug, and 3 of the most stubborn men on the planet to convince me of that. But I was finally, truly starting to believe it. The reality show reached its climax. Someone got eliminated. Someone else proposed. The credits rolled. And in our little apartment, surrounded by the people I loved most in the world, I let myself be happy. 2 years later, the graduation ceremony was interminably long. I sat in my cap and gown, sweating under the June sun, waiting for my name to be called. In the audience somewhere, my parents were sitting with Mason's mom and Tyler's family, and Jake's entire extended clan. They'd all become one big chaotic extended family over the past 2 years, and seeing them together always made my heart feel too big for my chest. When my name was finally called and I walked across the stage, the roar from our section was deafening. I could pick out individual voices, my mom's proud scream, Jake's dad's booming cheer, and 3 voices I would have recognized anywhere. My roommates, my partners, my home. After the ceremony, we took approximately 1 million photos. The 4 of us in our caps and gowns. The 4 of us with our families. The 4 of us with our friends. The 4 of us doing increasingly ridiculous poses until Tyler begged for mercy. I have a reputation to maintain, he protested, but he was laughing. Your reputation as the student council president who's dating 3 people? Mason asked. I think that ship sailed a long time ago, babe. I'm not student council president anymore. I'm a college graduate. Congratulations, by the way, I said. To all of us. We did it. We did, Jake agreed. And now we have the whole rest of our lives ahead of us. The whole rest of our lives. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like an adventure waiting to happen. So what's next? I asked. After the parties and the packing and the moving? Well, Tyler said, and the look in his eyes was slightly nervous. I was thinking we could start with a trip. Somewhere nice. Just the 4 of us. A vacation? Something like that. He reached into his pocket and pulled out 4 plane tickets. I may have made some arrangements. Mason grabbed the tickets, his eyes going wide as he read the destination. Paris? You booked us tickets to Paris? We've all been talking about wanting to go. And with graduation money and the job offers we've all accepted, I thought. Tyler shrugged, suddenly looking uncertain. Is it too much? It's perfect, I said, and I kissed him right there in front of our families and our friends and the entire graduating class. You're perfect. You said that was annoying. It is. I've learned to live with it. Mason and Jake crowded in, demanding their own kisses, and soon we were a laughing, tangled mess of limbs and graduation gowns and joy. Later that night, after the parties had wound down and our families had gone back to their hotels, we returned to our apartment for the last time. The movers were coming tomorrow. Everything was packed in boxes. The walls were bare again, the golden color hidden under a coat of primer we'd applied last weekend. But it still felt like home. Because home wasn't the apartment. Home was them. We sat on the floor of the empty living room, eating cold pizza and drinking warm beer, and talked about the future, about the jobs we'd start in the fall, and the city we'd move to and the life we'd build together. I can't believe this all started because I catfished you, I said, shaking my head. To be fair, Jake said, it really started because you got drugged by a psychopath. That's not the romantic origin story I was going for. Life isn't a romance novel, Mason said. It's messy and complicated and sometimes really fucking weird, but it's ours. Ours. I like the sound of that. To the future, Tyler said, raising his beer. To the future, we echoed. And as the sun rose on our last day in that apartment, I looked at the 3 men who had turned my worst mistake into the best thing that ever happened to me, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever came next, we would face it together. The catfish had finally found his ocean, and it was more beautiful than anything he could have imagined.